So I will be your instructor for this subject. My name is Emerson Ramos, and welcome to the course. So our first topic on this course would be the fundamental principles of taxation. So let's define first what is taxation. As a power, taxation refers to the inherent power of the state to demand and force contribution for public purpose to support the government. Then, as a process, this is the legislative act of laying a tax to raise income for the government to defray its necessary expenses. So, technically, taxation would be um, the imposition of contributions to the citizens of the state to support the expenses of the government. Okay? Then, what is the uh, purpose of taxation? So, primarily, taxation is uh, to raise revenue for the government or for the state. Then, secondary would be regulatory and compensatory. When we say regulatory, this is to regulate the conduct of business or profession, to achieve economic and social stability, and to protect local industries. Then for compensatory, this is key instrument of social control, reduce inequities in wealth distribution, strengthen anemic uh, enterprises, then provides incentives, uh, uses as implement in the exercise of police power to promote general welfare and check inflations. Then another one would be as a tool on international bargains and promote science and invention. So these are the secondary purposes of taxation. So for primary purposes, it is to raise revenue for the government. So why do we say that taxation is the lifeblood of an state? So taxes are indispensable to the existence of the state. Without taxation, the state cannot raise revenue to support its operation. So taxation is the lifeblood of the government, meaning the government cannot run the country without taxation, meaning um, without taxation to fund or finance its operations. This is same as, or similar as to running a business. Okay, a business cannot run without funding. So, if compared to business, the state or the country cannot run without taxation. Okay, so is this absolute to all countries or state? Of course not, because some countries do not have taxation, but for these countries, the government actually owned the land. So the government raise revenue from its land. Okay, so um, uh, the income that are earned by the property of the government can sufficiently finance the operation of its government. Okay, so what are the nature or characteristics of the power of taxation? One is it is for public purpose. Okay, so the end result of taxation should be to benefit the general public. Okay? Number two, inherently legislative in nature. So the the power of taxation um, can can be imposed or can be uh, exercised by the legislative department. So yung ating uh, mga congressman saka senate, they are the ones enacting laws to uh, um, to impose taxes. Then another one is it is subject to international committee or treaty. This is one example of this is the so-called reciprocity clause, meaning if if an income or a property is taxed similarly in a country in another country, then um, we can uh, you can actually use the taxes paid on that country as a tax credit in the uh, in the Philippines. Okay, we will discuss that more when we go on with this course. Then another one, the power of taxation is not absolute, being subject to constitutional and inherent limitations. So we have limitations with regards to the power of taxation. Then exaction payable in money. Okay, and lastly, it is territorial. But as I have mentioned, it is also uh, subject to international committee or treaty. But generally, the power of taxation can only be exercised within the boundaries of the state or within the territory of the country. Okay. Next, how is taxation being exercised? First, legislation of laws by Congress and tax ordinances by local sanggunian or uh, what we call the enactment of law and passing of ordinances. Okay, so it is not uh, immediately being imposed if for example the mayor would like to um, impose a toll fee whenever a vehicle passes through his municipality. Uh, it cannot be simply it cannot be imposed immediately without a proper process. Okay, it will follow the process on passing ordinances or laws. Then, tax collection by the administrative branch of the government. So, when a tax law is enacted, then the administrative branch of the government um, will be the one uh, to impose, or there will be the one to uh, the administrative branch of the government um, will be in charge of the collection of the taxes. So sila yung mag-i-implement nung ating um, tax laws. and ordinances. Okay, then what is the scope of the power of taxation? Taxation is one, supreme. So um, it is uh, I mean the power of taxation is one of the inherent power of the state. So it is it is imposed to all the citizen of the state. So no one is above the state. Another one is power. The power of taxation is comprehensive, meaning um, it includes a wide coverage, and it is unlimited. So whenever the legislative department uh, um, think of a necessity to enact um, another tax law, for example, they would like to tax the use of vape or e-cigarette, then they can do so. So whenever uh, an individual purchase an e-cigarette, then the government can impose tax on that. Okay? Then another one, it is plenary. Okay? This includes the power to destroy. So if the the government um, implements tax law, then this includes the power to. Okay, so when we say the government has the power to destroy through the power of taxation, it means that the government can cease operation of any establishment that are not complying with their with the laws being imposed or implemented. Then um, another one is the discretion of taxing power. This means the taxing power extends to the amount or rate of the tax. So simply by enacting another tax law, the government can um, uh, change or uh, update the tax rates that being imposed. Then kinds of tax to be collected. So it will be depending on the government if what kind of tax will they want to enact. Then apportionment of the tax. Another one, the person, property, and excises to be taxed provided within its jurisdiction. So this is based on the characteristics of the power of taxation that it is territorial, which leads to the situs of taxation, which literally means the place of taxation. Another one is method of collection. So some taxes are collected uh, in a period of in a different periods, like for VAT, companies are required to file their VAT returns monthly. Then for the income tax, individuals are um, are required to file and pay their income taxes yearly. Also, another method is the imposition of tax in the transactions, like the VAT. We are actually paying VAT whenever we purchase a vatable goods or services. So it is already included in the amounts that we are paying. Then another one is the purposes for its levy provided for public purposes. So these are the discretion of the taxing power. But of course, this is um, in these are still uh, under the constitutional and inherent limitations. So, what is the underlying principles behind the power of taxation? One is principles of necessity. So, the existence of the government is a necessity and it cannot continue without the means to support itself. So, ito yung theory of taxation and also the lifeblood doctrine. So, without taxation, our government cannot support itself and cannot support its operations. Okay? Another one would be the benefit received theory. So the government and the people have the reciprocal and mutual duties of support and protection. This is the basis of taxation. So when we pay our taxes, then we can expect that the government should also do its duty of protecting us as its citizen. So when we say protection, it's not only through the police power, but also through the infrastructures and other services that the government uh, must provide. So, what are the legal basis of the power of taxation? I mean, what are the objects of taxation? One is businesses. Of course, businesses need to pay their taxes. Another is interest. So when we earn interest, we should also be paying taxes. Then transactions, like like what I have mentioned, VAT is imposed on the transaction. Then um, rights, acts, persons, properties, and privileges. These are the objects of taxation. So taxes are being imposed to these objects with of course with different rates and methods of collection. Okay, so what are the phases of stages of taxation? So what comprises the taxation system? First would be the levy or imposition. So this includes the passing of tax law, then kung sino yung mga uh, itatax, ano yung object of taxation, then what would be the rate, how will it be collected. Then next would be the assessment of tax. So once tax laws are in place, then the administrative department may now assess the the taxes to be collected in the object of taxation. For example, sa business, ano yung mga taxes na pwede natin i-assess sa business? Of course, the income taxes, then the ano pa ba? Sa interest would be percentage tax, mga ganun. Then persons would be for professional taxes. So yun yung mga taxes na pwede nating i-assess for these objects of taxation. Then the last phase would be the payment of tax. So once you have once tax are assessed, then it will be the obligation of the taxpayer to uh, pay the tax due. So if the taxpayer failed to pay his or her tax, then um, there will be consequences. Okay, so what are the elements of the tax system? First is the tax structure. So from the enactment of tax law, so sino yung mga objects of um, taxation, sino yung mga ita-tax, then hanggang sa assessment kung magkano yung expected or what would be the rate to be uh, collected or imposed on the transaction. Then the tax administration. So how it is to be collected, or how are we going to implement the tax law? Will it be transaction based, or um, the collection base? It depends on the implementation that will be followed. Then public tax consciousness. So in every law, uh, um, every city or the public should also should be uh, informed, okay, before it can be implemented. So if a tax law is not published, or uh, not made known to all, then it cannot be it is not a valid law. Okay? So dapat yung ating tax law is um, a public knowledge. Okay? So what are the principles of a sound tax system? One is fiscal adequacy, meaning sources of revenue should be sufficient to meet the demand for public expenditure. Pero as we all know, or we can observe that every year when the government pass the national budget, we always hear the word deficit. So meaning yung ating current tax system is not a sound tax system. Kasi nga we always hear that the national budget uh, is currently not enough. So we have to borrow funds from other sources. So yung ating latest issue nga sa ating utang, na sobrang lumalaki daw ng ating ating utang as a country. Well, um, this is a problem from decades ago. So let's just hope that in the near future the government can resolve this insufficient um, government funding. Another one is administrative feasibility, meaning tax laws must be capable of uh, convenient, just, and effective administration. So, um, I think the new train law um, meet this principle of a sound tax system because uh, because of the adjustment in our tax rates or our limits, many low income earners have benefited in this, but it also benefited the um, large companies, I think, in some ways. Then another one is the theoretical justice, meaning tax must be imposed with equity and certainty and must consider the taxpayer's ability to pay and benefits received. So for this one, um, for the current tax system, I think because of the graduated tax table, we are are exercising this theoretical justice. But for some taxes um, that we are actually paying without regards um, to our income or our ability to pay, like the VAT, and it is without regards to the person's ability to pay. So it is, I think this tax does not meet the theoretical justice. For the record, that is just for my opinion. So another one is the principal approaches in the distribution of tax burden. One is the benefit approach. So for the benefit approach, tax payment should be based on the benefits received. So meaning um, kung kumita ka ng ah, ah, malaki sa interest, ibig sabihin mas malaki din yung tax na babayaran mo. Okay? So also if we uh, put it in the salaries and wages, kung maliit yung, or I mean below minimum yung gross salary mo for the year, meaning you receive less than the expected minimum wage or minimum bracket for tax exemption, then you will not be paying tax. But if you receive more than the, the minimum wage, then you will be taxed accordingly. So meron tayong table na ipa-follow doon. So that is one approach. So kung mas malaki yung benefit ng receive mo, then you will be tax uh, you will be paying more taxes. Another one is the ability to pay approach. So tax payment should be based relative to the ability of taxpayers to pay. So, ayun nga, for example, yung ating wages ng ating mga minimum wage earners are paying less or no tax because their salaries or their wages are only enough or even uh, insufficient to uh, pay for their day-to-day expenses. So, kung dadagdagan mo pa ng taxes payable, then it will be a material burden to our minimum wage earners. Okay? But for the uh, um, high income earners, of course, um, they will have the ability to pay. So, we can impose a higher taxes on them. Okay? Another one would be taxation and economic efficiency. So, for the income effect, this makes people economically efficient. For example, uh, the transformation. Okay? Then, another is the substitution effect makes people economically efficient. I I mean makes people economically inefficient. For example, the indirect taxes. Okay? So that will be uh, the end of our first discussion. So if you have questions, please message me through our LMS group chat or our Facebook group chat. So I will be very responsive if you have any questions and clarifications. So for our next discussion, we will be discussing the inherent powers of the government briefly. So one of the inherent powers, of course, is the power of taxation. So the power of taxation is the power to take property for the support of the government and for public purposes. So another inherent power would be the police power, meaning the power to enact laws to promote the general welfare of the people. It is wider in application because it is general. It is the general power to make laws. And another is the power of eminent domain or the power to take private property for public use upon payment of just compensation. So, power of taxation, police power, and power of eminent domain. So, see you on our next discussion. Thank you and have a good day.